The 49ers not only surprised some fans by selecting one wide receiver, but two wide receivers in the NFL draft. Obviously, we have covered Ricky Pearsall. We've come around to him, really loving that selection. But a guy that we haven't spent too much time on just yet has been Jacob Cowing, the fourth round selection out of Arizona. Now, this guy has been kind of under the radar after he was drafted. Many are going to point straight to the measurables and say, oh, he's small, 5'8, 168 pounds. Like, oh, wonder what he's going to do in the San Francisco 49ers scheme. If you haven't watched him just yet, before you do, take a listen as Greg Cosell talks about how he's been scouting Jacob Cowing for the last 3 seasons. So he knows this player very, very well. And I think you're going to like what he had to say about the 49ers fourth round draft pick. Take a listen to Greg Cosell as he joined Doug Farrar on his podcast right here.
Let's get to Jacob Cowing. I was kind of glad you mentioned him. I've watched Jacob Cowing, believe it or not, for 3 years in a row because I thought he might come out. You know, in 2021, he was at UTEP and he transferred to Arizona. And when he was at UTEP, he was used totally differently than he was at Arizona. At Arizona, he became kind of a short intermediate receiver who every once in a while might run vertically. When he was at UTEP, he was a vertical dimension, and he ran a 4.38 40. And this guy can run. I mean, he's got natural quickness as a route runner. He runs precise routes. But like I said, when he was at UTEP, he was a vertical player. Even though, you know, he's 5'8 3/4, I think we saw what Tank Dell did a year ago with the Houston Texans. Cowing probably has more vertical speed. Dell's probably just more explosive laterally, although Cowing's still pretty good in that regard. But I'm really curious to see him because he can run. And that's the Niners don't truly have that guy. I mean, Ayuk is not slow, but, you know, they don't have a true vertical dimension. So it'll be interesting to see how they see him. Now he'll probably end up being a return man with the new rules, but he was really interesting to me because I watched his 2021 tape from UTEP a couple of summers ago, but I remembered it really well. And he was a vertical guy.
I'm watching the 35-yard touchdown against Oklahoma right now where he ran that seam route and just against quarters and scalded everybody. We're going to put that play up. Yeah,
I think I know the play you're talking about.
He's an exciting guy. So let's say they keep Debo and Ayuk, and now they have these two guys, and Jawan Jennings is a sort of late career Anquan Bolden who can just Godzilla every cornerback. And it's like, wow, that passing game all of a sudden, goodness.
Now, I can speak for myself. I was actually surprised that the San Francisco 49ers selected Jacob Cowing. I was actually surprised that the San Francisco 49ers even brought him in for a 30 visit. I just really didn't see Kyle Shanahan liking Jacob Cowing. I personally liked Jacob Cowing, and shout out to my guy Justin, who not only put me onto this clip, but also put me onto Cowing early on in the draft process. And you could see right away that this guy was a very talented wide receiver to the point where the first couple clips that I saw him, I thought he was like a 6'2 wide receiver. Later, I found out this dude's 5'8. But that's one of the things that I personally love about Jacob Cowing is he plays much bigger than his size would indicate. And when you watch this guy play, man, he does it all. And that's kind of what Greg Cosell was talking about specifically during his time at UTEP, in which honestly I haven't even watched Cowing's tape at UTEP. I've only watched him at Arizona, so I'm really excited to get into that. But what I also noticed at Arizona was the vertical threat that he poses. He really does challenge deep, but he also did a ton of stuff in the short to intermediate areas of the field at Arizona. But just like Cosell is talking about, is that Cowing was used in a much different role at UTEP, and he thrived there. And so I believe that Kyle Shanahan sees this. I think he sees the fluidity, the speed, his dog. Like, he plays with a very physical play style, even though he's only 5'8". And again, I had a chance to talk to him at the combine about this.
You've talked about your stature, but when you flip on the tape, you're a guy who can challenge vertically over the middle and even behind the line of scrimmage. You attack the ball. Is that a part of your mentality of like playing bigger than maybe your size may indicate, and just how do you attack the football field with that mentality?
Good question. I'll say that's just who I am. That's like my upbringing throughout my careers of playing football. Me being a smaller guy, you got to display a little bit more heart, bigger heart. Have that dog in you. So I have years and years underneath my belt having that mentality, and at the end of the day, it's just all a mindset going into it, trying to get the most out of it.
So the San Francisco 49ers got a couple of dogs in Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. How do you feel like you'd fit into that room, and what would it be like to play with some guys like that?
Biggest thing that I see with those guys is the yards after catch. Those guys are tremendous with the ball in their hands. I feel like that's something I can definitely bring to the table with my game as well. Yards after catch. It would be a great opportunity to piggyback off of those guys, pick their brains a little bit about that too as well, and what they do to get prepared for that situation when they have the ball in the hand.
And it's just, he's such a like humble, soft-spoken dude, but you wouldn't tell by the way that he plays on the field. And so you listen to what Greg Cosell has to say, you watch the tape. This guy has a chance to be a really good player for the San Francisco 49ers, especially if he fits in to what Kyle Shanahan is looking for. We know Kyle Shanahan can be a little bit harder on wide receivers because wide receiver is Kyle Shanahan's positional expertise on the entire team. And so, but I do imagine that Kyle saw something here. Kyle saw something in Cowing and saw a role for him. And I would have to imagine it's very similar to the role in which he thought Danny Gray could fill. But unfortunately, Danny Gray just hasn't been that guy for the San Francisco 49ers, and his time could be coming to an end, and in big part due to Jacob Cowing. So it is going to be fascinating to see what Cowing looks like in training camp, what he looks like against an NFL defense, and how he translates his skill set from the college game to the NFL. But from a lot of people that really understand ball and get it, they see the potential in Jacob Cowing, and clearly the 49ers do too. What do you think about Jacob Cowing, and what do you think he could be for the San Francisco 49ers offense? Do you like the pick? Let me know what you guys are thinking in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.